Hello, my name is Rachel and I'm here today to talk about one of my favourite people on the planet. So today is a very special day, as you can probably see from whatever I decided to title this video. The 30th of July 1818 was the day that Emily Brontë was born, and so today is her birthday. And I've decided to make a little video dedicated to Emily Brontë. Absolutely adore her, and the one book that she published, unfortunately, because I swear to God if she had published anything else I would have eaten that shit up. If you have watched my channel before, listened to me talk about Wuthering Heights before or anything like that, you will probably know that Wuthering Heights is up there as one of my favourite books of all time. It slowly rises with every reread to tie with my favourite book of all time, which is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Every time I reread Wuthering Heights, I get to the point where I say that those two are tied. So it's really up there in my little book hierarchy, if you will. Will say on a side note that I notice more and more every time I talk about them both how similar they both are in terms of I must really love a revenge plot. But, you know, not the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about the lovely, lovely Emily Brontë and her wonderful book, Wuthering Heights. I thought to start this video I would tell you a few facts about Emily Brontë. So Emily Brontë's full name is Emily Jane Brontë. Obviously her birthday is the 30th of July 1818, as I've just mentioned. She published one book in her lifetime, which was Wuthering Heights, and she published it under the pseudonym of Ellis Bell. She also has two very famous sisters, Anne Brontë and Charlotte Brontë, and together they also published poetry and created a fictional world called Gondal that they all used to write about together. Emily Brontë was from Yorkshire. She was originally born in Thornton and then moved to Haworth, and her and her family spent most of their time in Haworth in the parsonage. Very widely known, you can go and visit there. I think I've been around 3 times and absolutely loved it every single time. You can also, when you were there, go and walk in the countryside there and go and visit the crags that are thought to have inspired the crags in Wuthering Heights that Cathy and Heathcliff spend a lot of their time at. Emily Brontë died on December 19th, 1948, around 2 months after her brother Bramwell, and she died of tuberculosis. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know a few things about Emily Brontë before I jumped into this video and showed you basically a million different copies of Wuthering Heights. That's basically what this video is going to be. If you know anything about me, I don't know how much I've actually mentioned it on my channel, but I collect rare editions of books, like collector's editions, antique editions, things like that. I will say that Wuthering Heights is probably the book that I have the most copies of because it's such a favourite of mine. It's one that I've really gone out of my way to buy the copies whenever I've found them, and so yeah, that's kind of why there's a lot here. But it's fine, you can have as many copies of a book as you want, don't judge me. I also wanted to quickly mention that I reread Wuthering Heights I think last year, and I made a very long review video of it. I think it was over half an hour. If you want to go and check that out, if you have a lot of time on your hands, I will link it down below so that you can go and check that out and check out what my thoughts of Wuthering Heights are. Spoiler, I think it's amazing. So the first one I want to mention are the only ones that aren't Wuthering Heights related, so I thought I would get those out of the way now. The first one is a little edition of the Brontë sisters' poetry. So this has poetry from Charlotte and Emily, and this is a Dover thrift edition. I have read this book and I quite enjoyed it. I think I actually enjoyed Anne's poetry the most in this one. And the other one is the Penguin Little Black Classics edition of Emily Brontë poetry specifically. I did read this one second, and I did find that a lot of the poetry from this one was repeated in this one, but that's because there aren't a lot of her poems around. They are the only books that I have that are not Wuthering Heights related. So now we can move on to Wuthering Heights specifically. So firstly, I'm going to mention 2 books that I have that are more education focused. Because I studied Wuthering Heights, I did it at university, definitely. Yeah, I think I only did it at university, but I can't quite remember. The first book that I have is this Wuthering Heights York Notes edition. This is an A-level one, but I don't think I did it for A-level. I think I only did it for university, so maybe I just bought this because it was cheap in a secondhand shop. For those of you who don't know, York Notes kind of goes through all the characters, all the themes, commentaries, all that sort of stuff if you have exams on certain books. So these are great. And then the other one I have is this casebook series, and it's focusing on Wuthering Heights. These are all critical essays. Some of the essays in here involve Wuthering Heights after 100 years, dark otherness in Wuthering Heights, the rejection of Heathcliff, the genesis of Wuthering Heights, literary influences on Wuthering Heights, and Charlotte Brontë as a critic of Wuthering Heights. So they are some of the essays in here, and again, I studied at university and I'm pretty sure I found this in a secondhand bookshop and was like, that will probably help me in my essays. So I have that one. So all the books I have now are copies of Wuthering Heights, and I'm just gonna go through them. So the first three are quite special because they're all copies that I've actually read. So the first one is this little Penguin Popular Classic edition of Wuthering Heights, which is the first copy of Wuthering Heights I ever read, so this is quite special. I obviously absolutely loved it. I'm surprised I read it because the writing's quite small and I usually hate that, but I remember just eating this up and reading it in like a week, which I'd never done before with a classic. I don't think I'd ever read a classic properly before. I'd always like started them and been like, this isn't for me, I'm gonna put this down. I didn't do that with this one. I just carried on reading forever and ever and ever because I loved it so much. So after I read that one, I was pretty obsessed with Wuthering Heights, and it was around the time of the release of the ITV miniseries that had Tom Hardy in it, and I remember that I read that and watched the show, and then I was obsessed. And so I think it was that Christmas that I asked for this lovely Barnes & Noble leatherbound edition of Wuthering Heights, which I absolutely adore. I think is gorgeous. On the back it has a quote that says, "Be with me always, take any form, drive me mad, only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you." It has purple edges, these wonderful purple end papers that I just think are so cool. And this book is just very readable. The writing is of a really good size, and it has this little bookmark that comes with it, and it's not easily damaged. And so this is a really good copy to read, and this is the second version of Wuthering Heights that I read. Then the third edition of it that I read was this one, and this is published by Bedford St Martins, I've never heard of before. But basically this is a special edition that my mum bought, I think, and then gave it to me because I was going to university, and this is like an academic edition of the book. So this has the complete authoritative text with biographical, historical and cultural context, critical histories and essays from contemporary critical perspectives. And this is edited by Linda H. Peterson, who is from Yale University. So that is why I had this edition. This is the edition that I read at university while I was studying the book. And it's the edition that I absolutely destroyed when I was studying the book. Because yeah, I don't have a problem with writing in my books, and especially if I'm studying it, like I'm gonna rip it apart. So yeah, there's that one. And then the last copy that I've actually read, so I think I've read it 4 times, which I'm surprised. I thought I've read it like 2 or 3, but it must be 4. But the other copy that I have is the Penguin English Library edition. This is one of my favourites because this is the one that I reread while I was in Switzerland, and I got really obsessed with it again. I wasn't reading it to study it, I was reading it just for fun, and I loved doing that. And I put so many tabs in it, and I made the really long review video, and I just remember it just being so lovely. So yeah, this is the edition that's probably one of my favourites. And again, like I just love the Penguin English Library editions because they are so beautiful and yet so affordable that I just think it's lovely. I love them, they're very cute. All the other editions of Wuthering Heights that I have are copies that I haven't read but have picked up in secondhand bookshops or because they were nice editions, things like that. So I will quickly run through those. So the first one is this Wordsworth Classics edition, which is complete and unabridged, and it's got like the moors and the crags on the front cover, and this one was published in 1992. Then we have this Penguin English Library edition, which is very different from the new Penguin English Library editions that we have, but apparently that's what this one is. And this has a copy of a painting on the front that is a painting of Emily Brontë that Branwell, her brother, did, and it is in the National Portrait Gallery in London if you want to go and check that out. This edition was published in 1975. Then I have this red hardback edition, which isn't my favourite, but I still have just because I have a lot of copies of it anyway, so why not? This one also has illustrations throughout it, and it is published by Pennell, who I've never heard of before, but they published this one, so there we go. Then I have this edition, which is published by Reader's Digest, which I absolutely love. So this is a hardback edition again, and in this one it has this world's best reading little pamphlet, and it's all about why Wuthering Heights is such an amazing book, why they've reprinted it, and all that sort of stuff. It's got about the illustrations and remembrance and all those things. Just think it's a very cute little thing to have inside it. This is just one of the illustrations that is in the book, and this copy was published in 1990. Then I have this edition, which is from the Guide novel series, and this book has loads of writing in it. Then I have my last 2 editions of Wuthering Heights, which are my favourite editions of Wuthering Heights, barring the ones that I've read, because I think the first copy that I ever read of it is definitely going to be like my favourite copy of it because it's the one that I read first and I love it very much. So the first one is this one, which is a Penguin Deluxe edition. I absolutely love these editions. They look more like tattoos and I think they're really cool. I have Jane Eyre in this as well. So they have bedeckled edges and French flaps, which when you open up make a huge picture that is just absolutely beautiful. This looks extremely readable. The writing is huge. It's very floppy as well, and so I think this is going to be the next edition of Wuthering Heights that I read. But yeah, this is like my favourite. I absolutely love this. And then the last one is this little antique edition. So I don't know when this was published. It doesn't have a date in it. Like I said, I don't really look up the dates, but if I looked it up, I guess it would be quite old because it's fallen to pieces. This is a Nelson classic and I just think it's very, very cute. So it still has the dust cover, although it is a little bit damaged, and underneath it is a blue hardback. This is my favourite antique edition that I have, and this is my favourite edition that isn't like my Penguin English Library or the one that I read first. Like, just aesthetically, I really like this one. Other than that, I do also have a bookmark which says I Am Heathcliff on it, but I don't know where that is. I got it from the Brontë Parsonage Museum. And the other thing that I have is not actually mine, but it's mine. And it is this little Wuthering Heights bag. I stole this from my best friend because she let me borrow it once to take some stuff home, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna steal this, you know, like I love Wuthering Heights. And she was like, no you're not. And then I just never took it back, and I reminded her the other day that I still have it, and she was like, oh my god, that's my bag. And I was like, and it will continue to now be my bag. So that is it. They are all my Wuthering Heights books that I have. Let me know down below if there's any books that you have a million editions of. Let me know your thoughts on Wuthering Heights, whether you like it, whether you hate it. I know it is a book that polarizes a lot of people, but I don't care. I'm always gonna love it. Thank you very much for watching. Happy birthday to Emily Brontë, the wonderful lady that she was. And yeah, we'll see you in my next video. Bye!